to supersede your physician's advice, and I highly recommend that as you begin to implement these things, and I do hope you implement them, that you do them in consultation with your physician. Also, see if I can click here. All right. All right. That's okay. I can just click with this. Click here. Okay. All right. I have no financial disclosures. This is just information for public service. And so our topic tonight is Ancient Health Secrets Revealed. So this is kind of a part two of what we discussed before, and we'll get into it. And like I said before, we have only just hit, even tonight, it's just going to be the tip of the iceberg. Each one of these topics that I'm going to be presenting to you tonight, I can do whole lectures, even series of lectures on them. So just keep that in mind. But I want to introduce some of these principles to you and for your information. And so you can, again, in your own studies, go back and review these things. So let's look at what we talked about on our last presentation. We looked at the gross amount of misinformation that exists on the internet, that's out in common knowledge, that's just factually incorrect. And we have to be careful because when it comes to your health, you are your own best advocate. And some of these things are life and death issues. Some of the information that is circulating out there can lead you to an early grave, to be 100% honest with you. And so one of the take-home points we made is to take your health into your own hands. We also looked at what makes a difference between people who get infections, and some people kind of get it and get over it. Some people, you never know they had it, and some people get sick and die. And we looked at how we look at disease. And what we found is that rather than being a binary hot or cold, off or on, healthy or sick, it's actually a continuum. And there is a range that we think of as being in good health that's actually functional illness. And there are many things that determine where we are, including genetics, including our environmental factors. But one of the things we did learn is that our decisions can also affect our position on that continuum of health. And we looked at the immune system specifically. And then finally, we left off with some points that can strengthen or weaken the immune system. And we won't go over those again tonight, but just a quick review. Now, tonight, I want to talk about ancient health secrets revealed. This is a powerful, powerful, powerful set of information that people literally pay thousands of dollars to get the information that you're going to be getting for free here tonight. And again, I can't stress to you how deep these things, it's going to seem to be simple, but I can assure you they're exceedingly deep. The first thing I want to share with you is something found in the Bible. Psalm 139:14 says that God has fearfully and wonderfully constructed us. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. And we know this intuitively, but we take it for granted. Do you know that your body was designed to heal itself? Your body was designed to heal itself. And we know this. How many times have you got a cut on your hand and over a few days you can't even see where the cut is? It heals by itself. If we give it the right conditions, the body would heal itself. How many times have we broken bones? And did you know that when you break bones, the bone grows back even stronger than it was before it was broken? The body is fearfully, wonderfully made. But everything that God makes, he places everything that he makes under law. Again, we know this intuitively because we've been learning in these series of lectures in this seminar about the 10 Commandments. Well, I want to tell you that just as the 10 Commandments govern our spiritual well-being, God has given us principles in the Word of God that govern our physical well-being. In fact, Proverbs 4:22 says, "Attend to my words, incline thine ear to my sayings. Let them not depart from thine eyes, keep them in the midst of thine heart, for they are life unto those that find them, and health to all their flesh." There is physical law that governs our being. It's not an accident or a happenstance where we are on that continuum of health. And these principles are in the scriptures if we would just search and find them. Now, are you ready to hear these principles? Because I need your permission to give them to you because, again, exceedingly deep. Are you ready? You guys don't sound like you're ready. Are you ready? All right, that's what I want to hear. Okay, here are the 10 principles that I have discovered in the Word of God that govern our health. And it's in a acronym that I call Fresh Start. Fresh Start. And here they are: fresh plant-based foods, rest, exercise, sunlight, H2O, self-control, thankfulness, air, relationships, and last but most importantly, trust in God. These 10 principles, my friends, if we could just, they're exceedingly deep, but if we could just learn these principles and how they apply to our being, let me tell you, we would be light years ahead of modern medicine. Light years ahead. And what I want to do for the balance of my time tonight is we want to go through these principles very briefly, again, just skimming the top. And I'm going to show you that these ancient principles that are in the scriptures, that not only in the Bible, but they're all throughout ancient wisdom and literature, but they're especially found in the scriptures. But these 10 principles, we are now discovering scientifically through peer-reviewed studies that these are indeed true. And I'm just going to go to show you some of the studies that verify these things. But again, each one of these, I can do a lecture on all 10. And in fact, perhaps in the future, we may expand and look at some of these a little bit deeper. So let's start off with fresh plant-based foods. Fresh plant-based foods. That's the first principle. And a lot of times people will say, well, what's your diet? And people will say, vegan, I'm a vegan. But I want to make a distinction between veganism and plant-based diet. Now, here are 2 things on the screen that are both vegan. You have Oreo cookies on one side, and you have fresh berries on the one. They're both, vegan, considered vegan, but only one is plant-based, and only one is a whole food. And so let's make that distinction, because, and the preacher mentioned this in a seminar earlier, is that according to the British Medical Journal, a plant-based diet, let me just pull up the actual wording here. It says, the study published in the Journal of British Medical Journal, Nutrition, Prevention, and Health, found that people following a plant-based diet had a 73% lower odds of developing serious illness from the coronavirus. Think about that. No other changes in the life, just following a plant-based diet, you automatically lower your odds 73% of developing serious illness. That's if you even contract and get the coronavirus. But here's something that may come as striking to you, because one of the trends that we see now in health is a lot of people follow what you call a paleo or a low-carb, high-protein diet. Have you guys heard of that? All right. Now watch this. Same study shows that those on a low-carb diet, high-protein diet, had nearly 4 times the odds of developing moderate to severe COVID-19 infection. So again, people tout this as a big weight loss, but let me tell you, it comes at a cost. Let's move on. The R is for rest. Rest. Again, here's a study that shows the relationship between sleep and immune function. And let me tell you, I'm just giving you an example of some studies. There are many more studies that we can reference, but again, time would not permit us to do so. But this shows that sleep and the circadian system exert a strong regulatory influence on the immune system. It goes on to say that sleep facilitates the extravasation or the entering of the T cells into various parts of the body that act as sentinels to look out for infection. So sleep helps to distribute the T cells in the body, and the T cells are part of that innate immune system that ward off or protects the body against sickness. Furthermore, it says that the sleep also helps the antigen presenting cells and helper T cells to interact better between each other. So the sleep enables your body to recognize the infection more readily than when you don't have adequate sleep. Let's look at exercise. Exercise is another study, is a review study, and it shows the compelling link between physical activity and the body's defense system. And again, this study concludes that the more active you are to a point, the better you are physically able to resist disease. Now, it's very interesting that I say to a point, because you can overdo exercise, believe it or not. And I believe this study, it may be this study or another study, shows that when you get into extreme type of exercises like marathon running and these type of extreme exercises, it actually has a deleterious effect on the system. So again, exercise to a point, and I believe they mentioned like from 30 minutes to an hour a day of vigorous activity, such as walking. Something as simple as walking requires no gym membership. It requires no equipment. It just requires you. And I've actually counseled with some people who lived in environments where they couldn't go out. One lady lived in a neighborhood that it was so bad, it was so dangerous that she couldn't go out to walk. And I said, you know what? You can just walk in place. And that can have an effect. Not as good as outdoor walking in fresh air, but we'll get to that in a second. But getting that body moving. And again, I wish I had time to say that it also has an effect on the brain. Exercise is one of the most potent of things to ward off dementia and Alzheimer's and things of that nature. People think it's crossword puzzles and Sudoku, but exercise is a powerful tool in that as well. Next is sunlight. Sunlight is only now being understood in its full ramifications. Here are two studies that show that vitamin D metabolism and signaling in the immune system, that vitamin D is one of the key signalers in the immune system to get it boosted up. And we talked about this a little bit last time. And one of the best ways to get vitamin D rather, is not through pills, although you can do some vitamin D supplementation. And again, I'm not against supplementation. I actually do vitamin D supplementation, especially in the wintertime when I can't get outside and the sun is not shining as much. But sunlight offers one of the best ways to get vitamin D because it's bioavailable, because your body breaks it down just by being exposed to the sunlight. And again, there is extremes. Again, I'm not saying to go sunbathe and go to tanning beds or these type of things. I'm talking about pure natural sunlight in moderation. Let's move on. Water, H2O. energy balance of innate immunity in reptiles. Now, let me just say that innate immunity, there's two parts of the immune system. There's the innate and there's the adaptive. The innate immune system is what we're born with. And it is what makes children so resilient. You know, you can give a child chicken pox, they'll get sick for a little few days and they'll recover. You give an adult chicken pox, it can almost kill them. And many of you know that the pediatric population is probably one of the lowest risk populations for developing severe infection from COVID. And the reason for this is they have very strong innate immune systems. This study shows that in a desert reptile, an animal that is designed to live in the desert, that even that animal, the degree of hydration affects their innate immune system. But if it's that way in an animal that's designed to live in a desert, how much more in us? And this is not a study, but it's this is an article that talks about why water is essential for a strong immune system, because it keeps the body hydrated and it keeps it working at its most optimal capacity. Moving on, we have self-control. Self-control, which is a way of saying temperance, is an old word, a new way of saying an old word, which is temperance. And temperance is the use in moderation that which is healthy and the total abstinence of that which is unhealthy. And one principle of temperance that you find in Scripture is the principle of fasting. Fasting, my friends, is a powerful, powerful, powerful tool that is now starting to gain some popularity. But again, it is as old as the hills as far as ancient health wisdom. And this article says when fasting is tough, the tough immune cells get going or die. So fasting causes something called autophagy. It causes apoptosis. In other words, it causes the body to rid itself of that which is excess and unnecessary, and that which is helpful, it primes it, especially with the immune system. This article looked at fasting and cancer, and it was really interesting because it says here that fasting generates environments that can reduce the capability of cancer cells to adapt and to survive. So it's a really good principle as far as the prevention of cancer. It's a preventive thing, but even if you find yourself in a situation that you do have cancer, the same study goes on to say that in addition, fasting increases the resistance to chemotherapy in normal cells, but not cancer cells, and promotes regeneration in normal tissues, which could help prevent detrimental and potentially life-threatening side effects of treatments. In other words, what fasting can do is that it makes normal cells resistant to the chemotherapy, but the cancer cells, it doesn't affect them. So when the chemotherapy is given, the normal cells try to keep it out, and it gives it a more effective dosing of the chemotherapy, and it also helps the body to rebound better as well. So that's fasting under self-control. Now, here is one that we don't think of as a health principle, but let me tell you, it is something that can supercharge the immune system, and that is being thankful. Being thankful. The Bible is replete with verses that talk about praise, that talks about being thankful, giving thanks to God. But did you know it has an effect on your body's health? Here's a study that shows exploring the role of gratitude and support giving on inflammatory outcomes. So this looks at the situation of inflammation in the body, which is a breeding ground for disease, because it gets the body's system revved up and it causes, in fact, one of the key things of COVID is not actually what the disease does to you, it's the effect that the immune system in trying to fight off the COVID has on the body is one of the key things that makes it so deadly and dangerous. But this study shows that having an attitude of gratitude helps to strengthen the immune system. Again, each one of these principles, we can go far, far in depth, but I'm just showing you that these things are not just verses in the Bible that are good suggestions, but they have deep and profound effect in the body itself. Fresh air, again, there is a lot of information, but I chose to give you guys two studies that I think were very interesting. And it's about not just fresh air, but it's about getting out in nature. And what they found is that nature exposure and its effects on the immune system, a systematic review. And they show here that getting out in nature causes you to have anti-inflammatory, anti-allergic, anti-asthmatic effects, and increase natural killer cell activity. Natural killer cells have been found to be one of the key players in the innate immunity that causes some people, again, to get infections and you never knew they had it because they have that strong innate immune system, and natural killer cells is one of the key players in that innate immune system. Also, again, getting back to inflammation, it shows decreased expression of pro-inflammatory molecules. So this is, again, not taking any supplements. This is just saying when people who got out in nature, who took walks in the park and got around trees, they had these surprising immune effects. Again, they call this forest bathing. Forest bathing, again, is just spending time amongst the trees. And I read where one author talked about the healthful effect of pine and cedars, how they have health effect. And I never understood it. But now we have studies that are showing it to be true indeed. And this says, again, those natural killer cells, the natural killer cells activity lasted for more than 30 days after a trip out to the forest, suggesting that forest bathing trip once a month would enable individuals to maintain a higher level of natural killer cell activity. Is that powerful or what? Just getting out in nature, getting out in fresh air has such a profound effect on the system. The body is fearfully and wonderfully made. God knew these things. God gave these things to us. We have ignored them, but I'm telling you, my friends, we need to re-look at these principles because they are God's appointed means to help us to maintain and to restore health as well. Now, relationships. Again, we don't think about this as a health principle, but let me tell you, relationships are powerful when it comes to strengthening, boosting the immune system. Now, again, I heard the preacher say in one of the previous lectures in the seminar, he discussed these blue zones. These blue zones are areas in the world that people have discovered for whatever reason, the people they have much longer lifespans than other places. And 3 of those blue zones, this is a Venn diagram that shows the things of these 3 areas, Loma Linda, California, Okinawa, Japan, and Sardinia, Italy. They show the unique characteristics and they show where these things intersect. And you can look there at the intersection and you can see the group in Loma Linda have healthy social circles. This is one thing that makes them different than other places. They have strong, healthy circles. They have strong family connections, and they have strong social engagement. This is where they intersect. And so the point I'm trying to make here, the point that this article in the National Geographic is making is that your social relationships have effect on your health and your longevity. And sorry about that. They did a study here that shows, I think we'll be up in a second. There we are. And just as a side note, if you look down at the intersection between Okinawa, Japan, and Sardinia, Italy, that's outside the Loma Linda Circle, they have empowered women, sunshine, and gardening. I would make an argument that should be up with the Loma Linda group as well, but again, that's just an aside note as well. All right. This is a study that they looked at loneliness, social network size, and how it affects the immune response to the influenza vaccine. And so again, these are people who are infected purposely with the influenza with the vaccine, and they looked at how their bodies responded to it. And what they found is that those with both high levels of loneliness and small social networks have the lowest antibody response to the vaccine. And so this means that if they have a low response to the vaccine, they'll also have a low response to the actual virus itself. And so what it tells you that being engaged, being in social circles can help the immune response. And I'll tell you, meetings like this, believe it or not, actually help us to come together and develop social circles. So again, these meetings are not just a blessing because of these truths that we're learning, but they're also bringing us together socially, and that's helping us in our immune response. Lastly, I know our time is far spent. The last principle is trust in God. The Bible says in Proverbs, I believe it's chapter 5, it says, trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not into thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct thy paths. There is so much that I could say about stress and how stress weakens the immune system, how stress brings a lot of chronic diseases, not just acute disease, not just infection, but chronic disease as well. But there are studies that I won't mention now for sake of time that talks about how prayer and meditation upon God and upon his word strengthens the immune system, and how, because it allows us to take all of that stress and it allows us to give it to God, get it off of ourselves, and it decreases that load on our bodies. So just in summary, we have fresh start, fresh plant food or plant-based diet, rest, exercise, sunlight, water, self-control, thankfulness, attitude of gratitude, air, proper social relationships, and trust in God. These are the 10 powerful principles that if we learn these, my friends, we will be light years ahead of modern medicine. And so with that, I'm going to close and we can start our seminar discussion study for tonight. Just a couple of resources, nutritionfacts.org, for those who want to learn more about these things. There are, again, countless resources and books that also talk about these very same principles as well. Thank you so much for your attention, and we'll see you guys next time.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Swain.
Thank you.
All right.